Fight.
Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Before we get into today's draft chat with No Ceilings, Tyler Rucker, friend of the program. This is, I think, time number 3 on the show. Shout out to Tyler for that. Thank you for coming on as always. We'll talk a little bit about, we titled it Best in Class or Best in Show. Some of the best attributes of guys that, the best shooting, the best on-ball defense, the best passer, things like that in this year's class. The assignment's not due yet, right? Big boards aren't due yet. Mock drafts aren't due yet. June 22nd NBA draft here in less than 2 months. As you're hearing this, the draft lottery is, I believe, 12 days away or less than 2 weeks. So a lot of really good stuff with the draft coming up. We talked about all that today. Feel free to please follow Tyler below. Link will be in the description, as well as his Twitter will be on the screen. Support everything he's doing over at No Ceilings. Great dude. Don't forget, Two Pointers is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek gets you $20 off your first purchase. Code 2Pointers. Link in the top of the description. $20 off that first purchase. You're able to see exactly where you're sitting in the SeatGeek app as well as on the website. And you're also able to get a deal score on whether your deal is good, green, yellow, red, as well as a deal score 1 through 10. Don't forget to check out all of the draft work that I'm doing over at House Enterprise. All the links will be in the description below. As you're hearing this, it's Cinco de Mayo or a little bit after. My big board was released on May 1st. Everything will be linked for that in the description below. With that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the show with Tyler. All right, joining me today on Draft Chat, like you heard in the intro, is Tyler Rucker of No Ceilings. Sir, I don't really have a long drawn-out intro for you. You've been on a couple times. I'd like for you to introduce yourself to the new folks. How are you?
I'm doing good, Trevor. Thanks for having me back on. It's been way too long, but we talked about wanting to do this show a long time ago, and we kind of delayed it because we both had some life stuff. So congratulations to you. But yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I think it's a better time of the year, especially with the lottery, inching almost 2 weeks away. A lot of good stuff to talk about. But yeah, I've been doing stuff at No Ceilings NBA. If you guys haven't checked it out, NoCeilingsNBA.com, absolutely free all year round. You go there and you can read about any prospect you want. We try to show some spotlight onto the late second round guys, maybe some undrafted guys, as much spotlight on any prospect as we can. So thanks to everyone who has been following. The support has been outstanding, and I'm really excited to be on this pod with Trevor.
Yeah, the whole point of this, as people are going to see in the title, is talking about shining light on all different guys. I think there are people that we will talk about today. Some of them I literally have unranked right now. Some of them are obviously Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. But yeah, then when you brought up the idea, or I brought up the idea to you, I think we were both unmarried and now we're both married. So yeah, yes. Crazy transition, crazy. I was like, you know what? February doesn't make sense anyway. So how about May? And actually, funny enough, we're recording this May 1st. It wasn't even supposed to be this late, but worked out great. Like you said, lottery soon. Yeah, super great to have you back. First of all, for those that don't remember, you were on last year for, I believe it was the only mock, unfortunately, I was able to do last year. That was a lot of fun. There was a lot of chaos, which I think is beautiful. Today might not be as much, but it's just shining light on a lot of those guys and talking through some of it. Great work over there at No Ceilings, like you mentioned already. Everything will be, first of all, Twitter for you will be on the screen, linked in the description below for everything else for No Ceilings as well. I'm thankful for you guys as well and people are probably thinking, I'm going to have no one else on the rest of the cycle other than you guys. I promise I will. But it's just been a good string of you guys are doing really great work, and I think it's worth showcasing, as well as just seeing that much dedication from somebody or people in general, or a group of people. It's unheard of right now in this industry, just to see that much dedication from a large group. So I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Hopefully this will shed even more light on that and continue to figure out how Maxwell has a different mid-major program interview every 4 days. I have yet to talk to him. I need to talk to him. I need to find out what his secret is to finding out all of these guys. He even had a guy the other day I hadn't heard of in a long time, which was hilarious. So
he's been on the warpath this year, and I swear he brings up some guys, and we all feel like we're sickos, but he brings up some guys in the group chat we have where we just talk about draft prospects all day, and I swear, I think a couple of weeks ago he brought up someone, and we were like, "That's a fake person." You brought up a fake.
Don't lie.
Player.
You had to Google it, right? Had to go Google
immediately.
It. Yeah.
I was like, "This isn't a real person," and I looked it up, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Maxwell, we got to talk." So he's been a grinder this year. He's really been one of our MVPs. But it's great to get all those guys individually on podcasts because everyone has their own flavor. We're in a time of the year where we're debating a lot with each other. We're getting pretty angry. So it's brought some good content. It's brought kind of the competitiveness out of all of us, and it's all fun and games. It's all everyone's trying to help each other, but it's a lot of like, why don't you like this guy? And then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, here we go. We got war going on. So beautiful time of the year. And I'm excited for this one, and for everyone that's listening, keep listening, because all those guys are going to give their own splash, their own flavor for players that, I might not be high on, but a lot of guys love other prospects. So that's why we do it. That's why we love it.
I think I will get started. I think I quote tweeted his PIT preview, which, by the way, first timer here, so that was an unbelievable thing to go into it. Some of the names that I had heard of, all the names, thank goodness, but it was at least like, let me make sure that I'm just not missing a guy. And then he drops this bombshell 3 days before the tournament starts that's 10,000 words, and I'm like, I wasn't prepared for this. I was severely underprepared. So, and he didn't even go. I feel so bad for the guy. I'm like, God, this is the third pod I've mentioned he needs to be there for once, like finally.
Yes.
So I'm going to get him. I will personally fly him down there next year. Like, just, come on, let's just go. Like, it's great.
Hey, that's why we're grinding. Everyone forgets we all got full-time day jobs too. And he's got a kid. So it's like, hey, we have to make some sacrifices. So he said he wanted to do that preview piece, and we're like, Maxwell, go for it. And then we all opened it and we were like, what have you done? But it was awesome. I mean, it was a really important piece that I think Maxwell was the perfect person to do it. But yeah, we're getting to that point where hopefully No Ceilings will turn full time. But right now we got to take baby steps.
Of course. All right, so for those that are unfamiliar with what we're doing, I don't have a funny title just yet. I'm really bad about workshopping titles until the last minute. So we're going to call it Best in Class.
Okay.
Best in Show. Best in Class. I don't, again, working that out. Tweet me your favorite title ideas after the fact. I'll change the title. So we're going to go through some offensive categories, some defensive categories of guys that we think are the absolute, they're the best guy in this class. And obviously this is very difficult because there is somebody out there like Maxwell, which I think is a very funny conversation to have, that he might think that Tavion Kinsey is the best at one of these guys. However, I don't have him listed for this, for anything. But, subjectively, it's probably going to be mostly guys in our top 60 or top 100. So going through things like shooting, movement shooting, I threw that on there for a very obvious reason we'll talk about in a second. Playmaking, I'm not going to go through all of them. Ball handling, and we'll go through a bunch on defense as well. So we'll start with the thing that people care a lot about in the current NBA. Who is the best shooter in this year's class?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to warn everyone. It's always hard to just point one guy out, but I'm going to do the best of my abilities. And me and Trevor talked off air. Victor Wembanyama is going to be a name thrown around for a lot of these categories. So we even admitted we're going to try to pivot from being obvious with that one, because no one wants to just hear a pot of like, okay, well, Victor's the best at this. Victor's the best. So I'll try to get a little creative. Obviously, if everyone can't stand my picks, you can tweet at me. We'll have some fun. So I would say for shooting, I got to lean with Brandon Miller from Alabama. Just what he's done from outside this last year. He's very, very, very talented offensive weapon. And I think, his size, obviously everyone was praising his outside shooting ability throughout the year because he was just pulling up from NBA range. But I think what everyone needs to come back on or almost educate yourself is if you go back and watch him in high school, there's a lot of mid-range stuff that he didn't really get to showcase this year at Alabama. So I think he's got even more offensive upside when it comes to his game. And, he's looking like almost a lock to go in the top three. Obviously the off the court stuff will have to be answered, and people will probably start to shine light on that again. He's going to have the combine to talk to teams and stuff. But when it comes to just his pure basketball ability, I think he's one of the best floor spacers in this class.
Yeah, I looked at it from a standpoint of, and I like the point about some of the high school mid-range stuff. I was one of the probably thousands of people that was like, I want to see getting into SEC play some of the consistencies inside the three-point arc. And then I thought about it more. I was like, you could really see him adjust to the college game right there before conference play. I think I really underestimated that adjustment. But then that adjustment came from a guy who ended up with, let me just make sure I have it in front of me, averaged 18.5 points per game, a little bit, 18.8, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 0.9 steals, 0.9 blocks, 43, 38, 85 splits. That's impressive. Don't care what anyone says. That's unbelievably impressive. And I think from a standpoint of, and I'm trying not to kill the exercise. Like you said, I'm not trying to have 5 people. I'm trying not to kill the exercise by being like, here's my answer, but it might not actually be the answer. I went with Grady Dick only because of what he offers from a form standpoint, from a trustability standpoint, from my favorite team played him this year on a neutral court, and every time he touched the ball, I was scared. And in the NBA, I think there's guys that right now that you think of, Steph Curry just dropped 50 points the other night. Anytime he touches the ball anywhere within 44 feet, I think you're like at least a little nervous. So there's guys like that where I'm like, he is at least going to be a threat, and I think the tools are there. I think all the form stuff is really good with him. I thought a little bit further than just Brandon Miller, and I tried not to do that a ton. I do think Brandon Miller's the right answer, but I think for the fun of conversation, I'd at least like to think Grady Dick is a very, very good candidate. We're not going to disagree on a lot of these probably.
No, I like this.
Time,
I kind of like it. Yeah, we can
at the
both,
same time,
bring more options to the table. I like this, Trevor.
At the same time, 14 points per game in what people called the best conference in college basketball. Don't debate me, Big 12, even though it was the tournament might not have been the most favorable outing for them. 14 points per game on 44, 40, and 85. So, like, just counting-wise, that's not bad. That's really good. I'm just trying to be, like, beat around the bush here for the Grady Dick fans. But, I mean, just what he brings from an NBA size standpoint and shot standpoint is, I mean, that kind of height, same thing with Brandon Miller. So I think there's a lot of the same tools there that are really, really promising. So I think Brandon Miller's probably the right answer, but there you go. I try not to go too long on Grady Dick, but I literally just had an argument with somebody in a text thread about Grady Dick like 13 minutes before we got on this podcast. So it's fresh in my mind. He's the best shooter in this class, hypothetically.
I like it. I think he was in my conversation for that choice right there, but I do like the idea of kind of bringing multiple, guys to the table. And I think Grady's, when you're talking about form shooting and just it's consistent, it's smooth from outside. Yeah, he's going to be a lethal weapon at the next level, especially if he goes to the right place where I think he could just be that additional asset that stretches the floor with an NBA team. Like I think Grady Dick's going to be a dangerous shooter automatically. And it wouldn't shock me if someone was like hanging their hat, like you're saying, about Grady Dick being the best shooter in this class, because he can. When he's cooking from outside, it is scary. So I get that pick.
A 19-year-old Cam Johnson as was brought up. I'm not taking credit for that. As was brought up in the argument against me for having him at 20 right now. To be clear, that is the whole reason that argument came up. But at the end of the day, there's no bad choice for shooting because there's so much good shooting in this class, which is my beautiful segue. I don't want to – some of these we don't want to spend forever on because I do want to keep this to an hour for both of our sakes. But movement shooting, there is literally only one answer. Like, that is the true number one. And if we have a different one, I can't wait to discuss this. But
okay,
I would love to see, how they track in the NBA. I know College Synergy and stuff does it too, I think. But in the NBA, I love seeing miles ran or I think they do total steps now too, which is crazy. They do all that stuff. It's cool to see who runs the most in the NBA. Jordan Hawkins ran the most this year in college basketball. Yes. There's no question about it. To see it in person, like I know one of the days I wasn't very close at the Final Four, one of the days I was, but to see him I looked at my wife and I said, just watch him for one play, 2 plays, 3 plays, just a couple. Like just literally just watch that guy. And I literally just head bobbing, moving the entire time. Where does he go? Oh, he's over here now. Just best movement shooter in this class, and to make it at high volume and to make it well is just ridiculous.
Yeah, he would be my pick. I think it's very far. I mean, someone could try to argue Grady Dick, but I think Jordan, what he showed this year is just ridiculous when it comes to movement shooting. I've been very high on him all year. I absolutely love him. I thought he'd just continue to get better. I still think there's a lot more in his game that maybe people might think he's a one-trick pony, but I think he's got a lot more versatility that's just waiting to get unlocked. And he's going to be a popular name. I would not be surprised if he goes, obviously he's looking like a lottery pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somehow in the top 10 with a strong pre-draft process, but it's exhausting. Watching him is exhausting. I can't imagine defending him. So, I mean, I've done film dives on him and I'm like, goodness, he's running nonstop. Like, how do you deal with this guy? So I really hope an NBA team allows him to do that because he's going to be a nightmare. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of his pre-draft process because he got a lot of momentum going into it. And if he could keep that up and, obviously he's going to probably shoot the cover off the ball in workouts and stuff, but, it wouldn't shock me if he's in that top 10.
I think you made a really good point. I don't want to spend forever on movement shooting because I think the average draft fan might be like, movement shooting. Is that really what we're talking about for 5 minutes?
Yeah, come on. We're the sickos.
But it's true. At the end of the day, I love the point about will an NBA team give him that credit or give him that opportunity? They 100% will, because that was I mean, I cannot tell you how many NBA plays that I saw UConn run.
Right.
And then all of these all of these college evaluator playbook Twitter profiles that have 75,000 followers are posting all these like NBA plays and stuff after the NCAA tournament, and like UConn's was like 68% NBA plays. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff that was literally just taken out of the pro playbook. So they're going to give him the opportunity because they obviously saw it worked. And I just think the fit's going to be really important, because not that every team wouldn't give him that chance, but I think you're going to need a capable playmaker with him, and I think it'll be really fun.
Absolutely. I also think that's a guy that some teams might try to trade up to go get him. You know, even the idea of, I know it gives a headache right now, but like someone like Golden State might look at him and be like, this is a dream. This is exactly what we want. Like this, he would be perfect in our system. So obviously they got a lot of stuff to worry about when it comes to that roster, but you never know. Teams will be aggressive if they think a guy can unlock another dimension in their team, and Hawkins might be one of those guys.
So I mentioned needing a playmaker with him that I think would be really interesting. I'm going to pivot. I know we have the order I sent you in a screenshot. Okay. I'll play around with offense a little bit here. Who's the best playmaker in this class?
Boy. I know I
struggle with this one, to be clear.
Yeah, I would still lean, if I had to, I would still lean on Scoot Henderson. And I know that might shock some people because Amen Thompson obviously gets a lot of praise for his playmaking, but I think Scoot's playmaking this year has been sensational, especially the development he had from last year to this year. He really makes some eye-opening plays on tape. And I got the opportunity to see it in person earlier this year when he went and played against Victor, and leaving that game, I was like, I went to that game thinking I was going to be disappointed with Scoot, and I left that game like, oh my goodness. So I was just like, that's 1-2, easily. Those were my two guys. And the whole year it's been pretty easy making big boards, because I was like, it's those two to start it off. I haven't even had to touch my 1-2 really.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how opposite 2024 is. I've seen 60 different number one overall picks from 2024, and I'm like, I just don't even want to talk about it yet. I am planning to do something with 24 a little early, but this year I only bring that up just because like this year it's literally, I don't think I've budged in any form or fashion for 12 months. Like it's just been like, those two are the two. Let's just have fun the rest of the way. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's fun. It just really fuels the people that think the draft starts after like those kind of argument people. They're like, oh, this draft is just this and this, and I'm like, it's not. But it is. It's kind of hard. You can't fight those people. I wrote down Anthony Black, but I agree with you. It's Scoot Henderson.
That's a good one though.
I think it's at least he's at the table. Like if we're having there's four of us at a table, he's at least at the table.
Yes. So. He's going to be one that I don't think enough people will pick. So I like that you said Anthony Black, because he does have some plays where I'm just like, oh gosh, like that was something really special. And I think he does deserve a little bit more praise. Excuse me. Yeah, I like that pick. And I think everyone's going to try to point him early to Amen Thompson, but I think Anthony Black would have, like you said, he's at that table. He's getting a main course too, like everybody else. So that's a good conversation.
There was multiple times this year where he made the play we saw in the Game 7 Warriors-Kings where, like, I don't remember which team it was at this point. I keep forgetting now, but I think it was Fox that made the pass where he would make that pass from, like, 5 steps from the three-point line, and it would be a bounce pass across the lane, and it would end up in it would end up either in Kevon Looney's hands or Sabonis's, whoever it was. I can't remember right now. I was watching that game in 7 different locations, but I'm trying to catch back up on that one. But one of those two teams, one of the two lead guards made a pass basically 40 feet, and it just like it was a one bounce across the lane. I mean, it's just stuff that you don't even think about, like passing guys open, and Anthony Black does that a lot, and I'm a guy that's, I guess if there are people that swing him all over the lottery, I think I would have him in the lower end of that conversation, but I do think he's a lottery pick. So.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so the ball handler one's fun. I'm glad that we kind of pivoted around it because I wrote ball handling. I wrote Scoot because at the end of the day, I think people overrate when they hear ball handling. They think a guy like Kyrie Irving. I think that gets overblown sometimes. There are not many Kyrie Irvings out there that just can do things with a ball that I've just never seen before. Sometimes it's about brute force and what you can do with that brute force and how you can get around, through, and over guys. with ball handling and what you can do in lanes and out of lanes and things like that. And I think Scoot's just, I mean, I don't want to do it like you did for playmaking, but it could have been him for either one of these for me. And that's why I was curious what your answer for ball handling was.
I really am trying to mix it up and pick somebody else, but I think Scoot just that would be my pick because it's too far ahead. Like, I mean, if you don't think that, just watch the game against Victor, and he makes some sequences with the ball in his hand. You're like, my goodness. And I mean, Anthony Black would be another one that I'd probably throw in that conversation, but I think Scoot's just probably my number one pretty easily with that. I promise everyone listening, I'm going to try to mix it up and go away from that, but it's just, I think Scoot's that far ahead for me when it comes to his ball handling.
There's only one more that I have one of the two top guys in the rest of the way, the entire way. So it will get weird very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And I'm sitting here and I don't want to drag on like the ones that we just agree on like this because I'm trying to like find this really experienced college guy down the board that has really good handling. I don't know. It's like, it's a forced conversation at that point. Is a 24-year-old guy the second best choice? It's literally Scoot Henderson, and that's it. Like, I'm not saying there's no good ball handlers in this class. I just think there's a level that I think is exceeded eventually that, like, you are an NBA ball handler. And I'm not saying none of these guys can do it. I think Keontae George showed a lot of really good stuff as a playmaker and a ball handler this year. But, like, if I'm, like, thinking about Demoy Hodge as like one of the best ball handlers in this class, like I'm talking true, just can do stuff with the ball, Scoot's the answer, and we don't need to force it. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, a wild card would probably be Marcus Sasser for me.
There you go.
From
that's
Houston.
When I was looking. Yep. Older
yeah. So I mean, but we just jumped from one of my top two guys in this whole draft to a first round guy, a late first round guy, in my opinion, and that's where I'm like, okay, I love Sasser. I loved him all year, but it's still got to be Scoot for me.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sometimes forced conversation is not worth it. So, scorer, I wrote Brandon Miller because he proved it to me. He proved it to me this year. I was, again, one of the people in that doubter category of just wanting to see it come through in SEC play, and it did. I don't care what happened in the tournament. And he proved to me that he's a 3-level scorer. So, I would have been dumb not to put anything else, for me at least, personally.
Yeah, I'll try to get outside. Okay, so I've said Brandon Miller a bunch. Obviously, everyone wants to hear me say Victor. I'm gonna hold off as long as I can for saying Victor.
There's an obvious one for him.
Yeah, there's an obvious couple coming up.
15
so I'll
seconds.
Save those. Yeah. Scorer. I'll give Keontae George a little love. I think Keontae is going to be one of these guys throughout this process that is the most fascinating to me, because I think a lot of people are going to get married to the percentages. And when it comes to me, I'm just evaluating and I'm just eye test. And when he's cooking, you could put him up with anybody when it comes to just like, he's on fire. Who's the most dangerous? I think Keontae's a very dangerous player. And I think he might have a better fit at the NBA level with that spacing. And, Baylor was trying to kind of balance having a bunch of guards that were really talented on the court together, and sometimes that offense was ugly where it was just like, okay, now it's your turn, you take over, and it's like, yeah. So I think he's going to be more efficient at the next level, and his shot making, what he can do with the playmaking in between game, I think he's going to be a really good scorer at the next level. So I'll give Keontae some love.
I like it. As a guy who I had in the top 6 for a lot of the year, who I've now, after spending more time on different guys, that he's late. I have him at 11 currently. Mm-hmm. This is a plug for my big board being out as of May 1st as we're recording this. This won't be out till Friday the 5th. So Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. After here. I just forgot about that. Yeah, what better than a margarita and a best-in-class prospect podcast? Anyway, no, Keontae George is such an interesting piece because 30 points or multiple 30-point games in Big 12 play, like that has to speak volumes a little bit. And like, I don't want to draw I know that player comps are safe with you, but I started to change my philosophy on them a little bit around the reminds me of. I'm like, I know that Kevin O'Connor lazily says shades of, and then it'll be a guy that literally has no shades of anything of that guy. So I'll just be clear. When I say reminds me of, if I just at least see a flash of that guy in my head. So I try not to go really far back.
I like this.
We said a lot of things about Bradley Beal that you just said about Keontae George. And
yes.
That has been the comp for me, or the reminds me of all year. A 6'4" scoring guard that has playmaking ability.
I'm right there with you. I think everyone gets married. That's why I'm always on the No Ceilings podcast. I always just am very vocal about how I can't stand player comps because I have the
I know how
same
you.
mindset.
We've done shows together. I know how you feel
Yes.
about them, so I'm careful, eggshell. Like, here's. I've changed my own philosophy on them since we talked about it. So, like,
Yes.
reminds me of is like when I say comp, the word when I say reminds me of, I want people to understand that, like, I just see some form of either the body shape, the style of shot, or something physically that I know worked for that NBA player. It does not mean that I think that is the player they will be. So I'm glad
I,
that you
I
are
love
feeling.
this. This is way better because I feel like when I say player comps, it's the what you're going off of like he reminds me of this guy, and I'm just phrasing it because everyone hears player comps and they're like, oh, he's going to be that guy, and I'm like, no, he reminds me of like Jarris Walker. I'm always like, he reminds me of Draymond, and everyone's like, what? You're comparing him to a Hall of Fame all defensive guy? And I'm like, well,
Four-time
yeah,
champ. Yeah.
sort of. Like, just calm
Yeah.
down.
I love it. All right. Anything? No, I like the Keontae. I don't know if there's any other guys worth fighting for because I think there's a lot of good scorers in this class, so they're all worthy of the conversation.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, the Brandon Miller one's really really good. Obviously, we said Victor. Someone can very passionately give a GG Jackson argument there,
Yeah,
but I
I
think
can see it.
I don't know. I would stick with Keontae. I just the highs. If I'm talking about players' highs
Yeah,
when they're coming to scoring
yeah.
and stuff, Keontae is up with anyone's.
This could be its own show of just like
Yeah.
not just the high potential. I'm glad we both thought outside the box a little bit though, because it's like this whole show could be like, what is the absolute no matter what NBA skill die on the sword for, and like it's gonna be there's probably gonna be 10 guys that we talk
Yes.
about.
Absolutely.
When you're a scorer, you have to be a finisher. And I wrote Scoot Henderson. I swear to you, I'm done after this. But I want to hear you because I think I watched a bunch of guys this last, like, I spent a long time on May's update. And I just kept going, oh my God, Scoot can finish anything. Like,
Yeah.
I kept watching other guys that, like, have good finishing. And I'm like, damn it, he can literally finish everything.
He's just terrifying. I mean, he has some dunks, some finishes that you're just like, I'll say Anthony Black. I'll go away from Scoot. I think Anthony's pretty tough. I like his mentality when he's getting downhill into the lane. He's not afraid to go right at people. And at 6'7", he's going to be puzzling. Like I have him 11th. I think NBA teams are going to be drooling. Like I'm excited to ask around because I think some teams are going to be like, oh, he's going top 7. Like he's 6'7". He checks all the boxes. We absolutely love him and feel like I'm gonna be like, what about a shot? And they're gonna be like, we don't care. Like he does so much, and his defense is also really, really slept on. Like he's really, really good defender. So when it comes to finishing, I think Anthony Black's up there, but I'm also getting away from Scoot. So I'm just saying, like Scoot has some stuff that it's just like, my goodness, and the finishing too. Like it's with anger, and sometimes it's with creativeness and but yeah, I'll pick Anthony Black because you went Scoot. I'm trying to throw some names around.
Yeah, I don't throw around the, no pun intended, play finisher, but that's not what we mean finishing at the rim, to be clear for those listening or watching on YouTube. But I don't throw around the play finisher term very often. I think there are some in this class. I really do. I think Anthony Black's one of those guys. I think that's just, I'm glad you said that because it's like just he's going to fit. Connective tissue, right? And I think that's a really, really good one. All right, offensively, all I had left was dunker / layup package. I actually wrote layup package after I sent you the screenshot.
Okay.
So, like, if there isn't a dunker that stands out, then you can give me a dunker. This one we won't take forever on. Nothing really stood out to me. Like, there was guys that all of them could dunk, I mean, for the most part. So I'll give you the one I had, and then layup, I just would like to throw up one if there's a guy that you have in mind. Bilal Koulibaly's explosiveness is ridiculous. Like, just if it can be completely transformed from what it is raw now to, I mean, we're talking like 2-time dunk contest champion if he has like actual finesse with that. So I just think some of the dunks I've seen in his film is just ridiculous. And shout out to Nathan because we had an entire conversation about him because I was stubborn and I fought that he's not a this year guy for as long as humanly possible. And when I say I spent a long time on May, I went from not wanting to rank him in March, April, to he's 16th on my board.
Yeah. He's scorching.
That's it. Like, I literally 0 to hero. Like, and Nathan, again, shout out to Nathan for that because I know that where he has him is ridiculously high, but I think 16's fair. So dunker layup. Sorry, I went on there.
No, you're good. Koulibaly's he's sizzling right now. I think he's everyone in the everyone in the draft community that's now circling around to watch is like, who's this kid? And I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. So he's the name. Everyone's really excited about him. I think I've kind of asked around with some NBA guys, and they're like, yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff, but I think he's got a while. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I was thinking. So people were hinting like he's very raw, but yeah, there's some fun stuff. So we'll see where that, being very raw with that type of skills puts him when it comes to NBA big boards. But Koulibaly is really fun. I think his footwork, his layup package, if you want to put it that way, well, that's something that really jumped at me. Like, yeah, he has the explosiveness to dunk on everyone, but he also like he'll Euro step people to death. Like he's really, really crafty. Dunker. I mean, I have to go with Amen Thompson. I mean, just when he's getting in the lane, he has a lot of creativity, and obviously he can dunk on people, but I also think there's some, and obviously the analytics, mafia will come after me when it comes to like his finishing ability, but there is a lot of creativity I think he has and is probably waiting to unlock still. So I'll go with Amen. I'll give him some love.
For those that don't think you might be, apt to bring that up, obviously you mentioned the analytics people coming after you. I haven't had a chance to listen yet, right, to the one you guys just did about the Thompsons, but I think it's fair because you all did one months ago, you and Tyler did, and now to do it again and to see how some of that conversation has shaped or changed. It's bookmarked. It hasn't happened yet. I have not had a lot of commutes lately, so. But yeah, really quick on Bilal. I was fighting the next year, this year thing. I just haven't the true reason is because if a guy like that plays another year in a professional league without Victor Wembanyama, not that their team next year is not going to be talented, or heck, he might not even play for them next year. If he decides to stay, he might play in another league, or wherever. But to play in a league like that as an 18-year-old, and I know that he can be impactful without a guy like Victor. I mean, I'm thinking like top 6 next year. Like that's where I went with it. So to think 16 now, that's fair. And I think all of the stuff you said was really, really fair offensively. Is there any offensive categories that we might have missed that you'd like to give someone a shout out? Just a rapid fire. This guy needs love for this reason. I tried to go with as many good ones as people.
No. You did plenty. I think that's good. I think if we get any more categories, we're going to be really scientific. So I think that's those are good.
Who finishes the best with their left? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I need way more coffee if we're going to go down that, rabbit hole.
So footwork on defense is the first defensive category. I know that there's an obvious answer, but I literally put footwork first because I need this to be the personal. I need you to hear this out of my mouth before the public hears it, because sees it if they get all the way down to the bottom of my big board. I think one of the best, and I say one of the best, I know that the obvious answer is the guy you're fixing to say. Nathan Mintz has some of the best footwork in this class, and it's ridiculous. I get to see it in person in Portsmouth. I'm a huge fan of Nathan's. For the people that are ageist out there, I understand he is 25 years old. I do not want to hear it. Okay, the guy played basketball 10 years ago for the first time, played soccer in Ghana growing up, and it translates. We've seen it translate, and it's ridiculous. Some of the best footwork in this class. There's a reason he's in the 50s for me. I think the shot blocking is legit. I did not put him for shot blocking. That's why I'm bringing it up now, and there will be a piece on him coming soon. Just throwing that out there now because he needs to be loved, whether he's drafted or not. I think he'll be a very important priority for agents. So I know that the answer is, you can just say it for everybody who doesn't realize who I'm talking about. The best. No,
footwork. I don't know who you're hinting at.
Is it not Jaime Jaquez? Is it not Jaime Jaquez? He's the best
for defensive footwork.
Okay, fair. This is we can loop them together. Offense, defense. I'm fine with either one.
No. It's a good one.
So offensively, you would say it's Jaime.
For footwork?
Yeah,
he's got good footwork.
Yeah. It's eye opening. It's like, whoa, he just did that little twirl that guys did in the 80s. And I'm like, whoa, hello. But
yeah, if we were doing offensive, I would have probably said he's a good one. Defensive footwork.
I feel better about Nathan now because he really is.
No, that's a good one. I like the out of box. Those are the. That's why I love doing pods this time of the year, because someone says something like that, and I'm like, I need to go back and watch. See, I would throw Case and Wallace in this conversation.
There it is. I like it.
Yeah, so he's my guy. I love him. I think he's got some really special defensive stuff. So Footwork, I would have to just like go back and be like, okay, I'm focusing just on footwork. But when it comes to just his preparation and putting himself in the right angles and positioning, I would say I'd put him in that conversation. So I'll go with Kaysen right there. I was gonna pick him for another category, but now it looks like I'm just gonna have to pick Kaysen for a couple. So
There can be repeat offenders. Clearly,
yeah,
we've learned that in offense. So
I'll go with him for footwork. I just love what he does when he can dissect the play and understand the angle that he needs to be in to give himself an advantage. So I'll say Casey Wallace for there.
I'm going to save my thoughts on him because I think what he showed this year is valuable in a lot of different defensive categories, and there's one more that it stuck out to me. But I do like the footwork answer. Yes. I think it's not just feet sometimes. I think it's, like you said, a lot of the putting yourself in the right place. All right, shot blocking. Let's get it over with.
I'll say Victor.
Yeah. Is Derek Lively number 2? That's the right question here.
He's probably there.
That was the only other answer I had. So
yeah, I would say Victor, Lively. Jarris Walker's probably in that conversation. He's at the table. I like the at the table.
If it's reference. A square table, like, people could say Mount Rushmore. I just feel like we overuse the Mount Rushmore term. So I'm trying to break through and be like, hey, what's a top 4 we can not say Mount Rushmore about?
Right.
I think it's stupid. But anyway.
No, I like that. At the table, those are the 3 I would have.
I knew shot blocking was going to be boring, which is why I didn't even prepare anything, because I was like, you know what? If he has anything to say about shot blocking, I'm going to mute my mic and just let him have fun. But it's literally these 2 guys. It's just, that's it. Like, it's these 2 guys, and they're just the best 2 right now in this class. And I got to see Derek Lively in person multiple times. It is every bit of legit. I've told you many times we've talked that I value in person. I don't take it lightly. I think it's important to see things. Shot blocking translates in any form or fashion, film or in person, but my God, like a 7'2" guy just absolutely being like at an apex of a jump, being ridiculously far above the rim, and the ball has 0 chance of anywhere getting near it. Like, it just doesn't it's not fair. So,
and it got way better throughout the second half of the year. Like the shot blocking with his movement into the second half of the year was fantastic. So, I mean, I think it was starting to come together. The confidence was surging. Things were starting to slow down. So that's where it's like, okay, things are getting dangerous now. Like, yeah, he would be up in that conversation. Victor obviously is going to get the praise because of him being an alien and the emphatic rejections. But I think Lively's got a case for one of the best, rim protectors.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Victor that people are going to watch the next couple months is just like not recovery distance and stuff, but just like, hey, I have an 8-foot wingspan. So like if I'm face guarding, or if I'm playing off ball, I'm trying to figure the best way to word this visually. If I'm the guy behind the guy on the ball, like if I'm the defender that they're going to come run into, but then the ball ends up on the other side, to be able to like completely turn your entire body in a matter of 2 steps and not even need to do 2 steps and to just put your arm up in a matter of 15 feet you're covering, like it's not fair. Like it's 2 steps, he's covering 16 feet. Like it just doesn't. The math isn't mathing, and that's why I'm like, I just enjoy him every time I watch him, and I don't even like so I don't remember who it was. I feel bad not giving them credit, but someone tweeted this, and they were like, I don't even watch Victor anymore because like I just have so much fun that I just don't do anything else, and I just don't. I overthink everyone else at that point. I'm like, that's a great point, because at this point I just watch him for fun when I feel like it,
right?
Because I know it's just going to be so much fun, even if he doesn't like have this illustrious career. I like the point about Derek Lively really quick. Saw him earlier in the year when I thought Shire was learning how to coach against NC State, road environment, pretty tough area, pretty tough matchup there, big wise. So to see him struggle in that game, and then to see him against Louisville, granted Louisville does not have a compatible big man in his area, not even in the same remotely ballpark here, but Derek Lively's just 20 games later, like just ridiculous, like 10 games later, whatever it was. Improvement in less than 15 games is ridiculous. So, all right, really fast. Hands. I didn't have an answer. This was one of the ones I told you I had 2 that I just really didn't have an answer, and this is one of them. I don't really. How did you even think through this? Because I don't know. It's tough.
There's 2 guys that kind of stick out to me. Because it is also just like, I guess I could put maybe 3. It's a lot of just like help defense. It's a lot of on-ball defense, just your reaction speed when it comes to like, okay, the ball's right in front of you. Like, how good are you at swiping away? Like some guys I've watched this year, like you can tell things are slowing down when it comes to like an offensive player is trying to, pivot, get the ball around, and you can just see their eyes are lighting up on the defense side. Like, okay, there it is for the taking. I'll throw a couple of names. I think obviously Kaysen is in that
That's
conversation for
yeah.
me. Asar Thompson's up there. He's got some really violent hands.
Okay.
And then a little bit of a wild card, I would say Kobe Buffkin of Michigan is a guy
Okay.
that has some really good defensive hands. So those would be the three that jump out to me right away.
Funny you say that. I actually looked at Kobe. Like I went down my list, and I try not to like think too hard about some of these, but you would think we spent all year. It's like I should have an answer. I think Kaysen was just too easy of an answer. If it was literally
Yes.
just hand speed, I was like, but I want to think. And Kobe was like right there for the taking. I'm like, is it that good? I didn't have time today to just like go rewatch some of it. I think they're all good answers, and I would not be adding any commentary here that would be beneficial because I didn't have an answer. So I would rather just be like, those are all great answers. Those are all things that I think people should consider. Asar's a good one. I know you're in the Asar camp here, so I think hands is interesting.
I got to throw one more because it's probably should be higher up. But Jalen Clark of UCLA.
See, I have him in just a second. That's why I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
gonna. No. I'm trying to like. There are guys that are just sometimes too obvious. Where I'm like, he needs to. And I know the injury is going to cloud his process a little bit for people. I think he 100% does not need to be knocked for the injury, and I know that's going to happen. And he's plummeting down people's boards. But like, I think I've told you before, and it's been even more highlighted this year with a class that I've struggled with, spending as much time as I have. Is what I need at least one NBA skill. I'm absolutely ready to be like, that's what you're giving me every single night as the NBA changes and evolves. And like, I mean, he can guard people. Like, just I don't care. I just put him on 1 through 3 at least, 1 through 2 bare minimum. God, I mean, I know he can guard 3, but I mean, just put him on 3 of them at three different positions, and like, I know you can at least be a plus every single night. So
yes,
which is why I'll pivot on ball. I had Jalen Clark and Casey Wallace. That was what I was saving.
Those would be my picks.
Some of this stuff was just like, okay, all of these things, and this is a perfect point of this whole segment. Footwork contributes to shot blocking, and shot blocking contributes to on-ball defense, and they're all connected, and that's what's the interesting part about the defensive answer is we could have the same guy for all of these. I think a lot of these guys excel in all of these areas. The case of Wallace thing specifically, this is what I was saving was I don't want to make the hilarious haha. I don't want to fall for not thinking a Kentucky guard is just trust him and draft him, right? But why wouldn't he fall into that category? My point being, if he struggled, and I know the Cal stuff and the roster and the construction of the fact that they should not even have made the tournament, how bad they were playing 15 games in, for him to be that impactful and that strong of a case defensively, for honestly, I know the shot stuff there, the counting stats were pretty good, but for him to be so impactful defensively on a team that just positionally sucked, right? Like having to be a 2 guard in an offense with a guy who was 5'10", like he stood out. Like it was so glaringly obvious that was his absolute best thing he was providing every single night that I couldn't watch that Kentucky. I hated watching Kentucky early in the year. I mean, it hurt. Like it was just so bad to watch, and everybody didn't fit, and guys were struggling with off-court stuff and on-court stuff, and just it didn't make sense. And he just, every single time, I'm like, damn, he's so good on defense that, like, the counting stats just make it a little nice chef kiss on top.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. I just, like,
no, it does.
Ridiculous.
I still believe he's one of the safest guys in the lottery. I have him at 8. I love him. I absolutely love him. I think if I was running a team, I'd be, probably having him higher. If I had a job in a front office, I'd probably have Casey Wallace as one of my okay, this guy will probably get me a contract extension.
This is a keep your job kind of guy.
Yes, definitely. And everything I had preseason where it's like I wanted to see him do this. He checked every box. I was like, I need him to be an outside shooter, and he checked the box. Like he had a bad month, maybe even more than a month of shooting it from outside, but he was playing banged up. He was playing through some injuries this year, and he was great all year, especially with that team. I mean, he did everything they wanted. He had games where he was a playmaker. He had games where he just took over defensively. He had games where he had 4 or 5 steals in a game. Like he's just a really versatile weapon. I love him as a prospect. I really, really do think like he is one of those guys, like you're saying, Trevor. Just take him. Don't think about it. Just take him and be very happy with it.
if he was a guard for any other team, this wouldn't be the hilarious analogy that it is. It's like, just take the Kentucky guard. If he played for any other team, guess what? He's still the same defensive player, and that's what I have him in the top 10 for. Right. I have him at 9. Like, I'm with you. I love the if I worked for an NBA team, where would I actually we should just do a quiet big board between each other, like just tweet each other, or just like DM each other a big board of like, if we were hired by an NBA team, why our big board publicly wouldn't look the same. It's like, I know what you mean. 100%. Like, if this was like my life depended on it, like, he'd be 4 probably. Like,
yeah, period. I mean, that's the funny part, is like, everyone will get pissed about it, but like, no, if you're an NBA team, your big board's gonna be a lot different than the consensus, because you're making that about your system, your fit. Like, if you're picking early, you're like, I need to get a new contract. Like, that's gonna weigh into it. And I'm not saying you're just like only thinking that, but it is in the back of your head. And Taysom would be a safe guy. He would be one of those that you're like, I feel pretty good about, Case and Wallace potentially helping me out.
I don't say this often about a guy, but if he goes outside of 10 teams are going to regret it.
Oh, yeah.
Straight up. Like, I don't say this often because I think it gets so blown out of proportion, and I'm like starting to reach that point where aggregators do exist now, which is not fun. I like this, but I'm like, I like this what I'm doing every single day, but like, I love aggregators at the same time. They're the best. If he goes at 11, then 10 teams are 100% going to be like, what were we thinking?
Right.
If one of Amen, Asar, Taylor Hendricks, Cam Whitmore, guys that are really high potential that just need to prove it and need to keep growing into their frame and into their games. But like, those are just 3 examples of guys that are relatively more raw at that point. Like, the 10 teams are just going to completely regret that. Could be even more. So, all right, that was enough Case and Wallace talk, because I think I could spend another 30 minutes on him. On ball, Jalen Clark, we both agreed was just a good pick there. Case and Wallace is what I had. Off ball, I think there are 2 answers that I think are just the glaringly obvious ones, and I'm curious if there's more for you. I think Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks off ball is very close to each other, which is why I have them so close. People, I get, again, the aggregator thing all the time. Like, why do you have Jarris Walker at 3? And I'm like, have you seen him play off ball? Like, I would draft him in the top 18 just if he literally did nothing other than play on ball defense. I think I would draft him close to the lottery. And obviously you add all the other stuff. But yes. Taylor Hendricks is another one. I know Steven had some very, very, very lovely comments about seeing that in person, and just some of the one side to the other type of stuff. So just, it's ridiculous for those 2.
You're saying for off ball?
Yeah, off ball.
Yeah. Okay. I was just double checking. Yeah, those would be my 2 picks. I would be saying Jarris would be my number 1.
Yeah, me too.
I love him. I have him at 4.
Got to see him in person this year, and I was very happy, because it just, like, ECU's not going to be playing the Houston anymore. So I was just very thankful that, right down the road, I was like, wow, number one's coming into town. Let's go see this, It made me really sad, because I spent money on tickets, and, I love my family to death, and I went with my wife and her sister were both alumni, and I look to my right, and we're sitting on the same exact level as the media seat, and there's like the media availability area, and there's like 7 seats open, and I'm like, I could have covered this event for free, hypothetically.
Hey, that'll happen.
But I'm like, looking back on it, I'm like, they're not going to play them next year, so it is what it is. I'm just glad I got to see him. It was really, really good. I know Sasser got hurt in that game, and it was there was some, oh no, what are we seeing here? I think this was their second to last home regular season game before they played Memphis. So it was just, this was the stretch where we were like, Houston's in or they're out. Like, they're going to make the Final Four or they're not. So I got a lot of like fun stuff there, but Jarris was like, I was there to see Jarris Walker. There was no question about it. So, and he just, impressed. Ridiculous.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite prospects this whole class. So I get it.
Really quick before we semi-rapid fire, because we're good. Before we semi-rapid fire the miscellaneous ones, I wrote switchability. I don't know if that was on the one I sent you. I hope you had somebody.
No, yeah.
I don't really have a great answer. Who's a switchable, like, because I know Jalen Clark, I said 1 through 3, but like, who's somebody that if they accidentally in a switch guarded a 4 or a 1 that you wouldn't like, you would at least you wouldn't be stressing out as a coach?
I think Jarris is probably up there. He's shown he can hold his own against some smaller guys. So I think Jarris would probably be my number 1 guy. I'm trying to think of a little outside the box for you.
Taylor Hendricks earlier in the year was outside the box, but now he's a top, 15 pick for most people.
Right, right.
I think that might be the right answer.
Again. Yeah, I would stay with Jarris. I'm not going to get too crazy with that. I think he's probably the best the best one when it comes to if I had any of the top prospects having to guard, out of position, if you want to put it that way, I would feel the best about Jarris holding his own.
Yeah, I use the analogy of like the pick and roll. Like, so like if, the Warriors do it a lot with Draymond, it's like, again, you know what I mean? But, if he gets switched into a pick and roll by accident, right, and he's just coming, falling back on his heels or whatever, it's like I would feel fine if one of those two guys, if Taylor Hendricks or Jarris Walker was the off-ball or switch-pull guy. So,
yes.
Again, let's not overthink it. So, anybody else or anything else on defense before we go through the miscellaneous category?
No, I think that's all good too.
I think they're all connected. Like I said, it's just that's what makes this so fun. Is like people are going to listen to this and be like, "Dang, you guys forgot this guy," and that's what I can't wait for this. Like hey, to be clear for the YouTube audience, I want to be aggregated on this. I need your feedback. We need your feedback on this, right? If I'm missing a very obvious guy for something, please tell us. Twitter's on the screen. All right, miscellaneous. I have fastest, strongest, smartest, most athletic, motor, first step, and then who the heck is the most fun to play with? I'm going to start with fastest.
I'll do Scoot.
Yeah, I don't care if we're answering him 1,000 times, to be clear. I wrote Demoy Hodge and Terquavion Smith because I saw both those guys play in person close multiple times. They're ridiculously fast. Like
Terquavion's in the conversation for sure.
Yeah. With or without the ball. I mean, I don't care.
Yeah. I would put him in the conversation for sure. I almost threw him out for ball handling, but I still got to go with Scoot. He gets up the court very, very fast.
Yeah, ball handling. I'm glad you backed out on that because there was a couple of times. I mean, there's a couple of plays where I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think that about Scoot, so I'm glad you backed out on that. Yeah, Demoy, I mentioned it in my Portsmouth piece, but just like there's very few guys where I just watch. I think I said it to Nathan too. I was like, I literally at one point, I know I don't want this to sound weird, but like at one point I watched his feet for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I just watched his feet in person. Like I'm sitting courtside. I'm like, I mean, it's just to watch someone's feet for 2 minutes. There's not many guys where I'm going to be like, that's the thing. I was like, oh my God, why is that the thing I'm drawn to all of a sudden? Just like, it's like he runs on his big toes. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's very like quick. And honestly, like I said, I think I threw him out there quietly as a footwork guy, but just seeing some of that stuff that he can do movement wise, that fastest is sometimes falling into that category where like you have to be quick to do that stuff. And he is. I'm not saying he's like burst quick, which is why I'm glad you went with Scoot. Cause I mean, if we're just talking about burst, if we're just like narrowing it down, Scoot's ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I wrote those two guys as like a, throw it out there answer. I'm going to frame this next one really quick.
Okay.
Why isn't James Najee the strongest player in this draft?
I was gonna say James Najee, so I can't tell you. I mean, Jarris is in the conversation, but if you haven't watched James Najee, you'd be probably pretty hard to not think it's James Najee. So
you're speechless.
No, he is for anyone who hasn't watched him, he's a raw ball of clay. He's been playing limited minutes for FC Barcelona. NBA teams are drooling over him. He is so much fun to watch, and he's 18. He's listed at like 6'10", 225. I think that's a lie.
I do too.
I've had his agent tell me he's 6'11" without shoes. Nice. I think he's gonna be closer to 240-ish, and it's all muscle. It's not like fat. Yeah. It's just ball of muscle. So yeah, he's terrifying. I think you sent me all the categories, and when I saw strongest, I said Najee, move on. Like I was just like, that's pretty easy. Like, so I love him. I think he's the Hulk. He is the Hulk on the basketball court.
I did that for you. I knew that was going to be one that you liked because I like him also. I have him, I think in the just outside the first, which is only just because of there's just NBA skills for a lot of the guys in front of me.
No, I hear you.
So, I get it. I mean, look, there are multiple plays. I mean, you did his film dive, and there's a podcast that you did with Nick, I believe it was, that you got to spend an hour on him. Mm-hmm. People are going to look at this that casually follow this and go, how can you spend an hour talking about a guy that averaged like I pulled his stats for my big
I think it's like 3.9 or 3.8, I think.
First of all, his stats were hard to like just even translate and figure out why they were out of order. I had them as 16 games, 6 minutes a game, but I know that wasn't probably right. I was probably looking at the wrong place or couldn't find them or whatever. I tried to get them as of current day, but like less than 4 points per game, couple rebounds, but like 72% field goal percentage. Like there was multiple plays where the rim was bent below at like a 45-degree angle on a dunk. Like A, that's not good for the rim. First of all, just putting it out there for those that might not realize that. But B, like there are not very many guys right this moment in the NBA or not in the NBA that can make a rim do that. Like that is full-blown positional core strength power. Talking about best miscellaneous category, lowest body mass index probably by far.
Yeah,
just ridiculous.
There's anger. There's a lot of anger and power behind every time he's trying to finish, and he's funny because I mean, you talk about the aggregators. Like I think on our Instagram page we had a Najee post, and someone commented and was like, he's going undrafted, and I wanted to just comment and be like, I'll take that bet right now. Like, just throw whatever you want, and I will take that bet. So I told an NBA guy I had him 30, and he said I think he's going to go much earlier than that. I was like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. So I was
30, like, yeah. And then he's like earlier.
I love him.
I'm at 34. Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not saying 30 to you. I'm saying like the guy questioned your 30 because of the fact that he probably goes higher. Yeah, that's crazy.
It was just. I was also like, well, he's like, yeah, I would think he's gonna go much higher, and I was like, okay, this is also a guy that's usually pretty right. So I was like, okay. And he told me at the beginning of the year, he said if Najee went to Texas, he'd be a first round lock. Yeah,
I was literally about to ask you, was it you that said that? Somebody like I heard it. I listened to too much stuff, but like
same guy told me that in the beginning of the year, and I asked him about a couple weeks ago, and he said I have him going much earlier. I was like, he said I think he's gonna go much earlier, and I said 20 to 30 range, and he's like, yeah, I think that's where I would guess right now. But we got a long time. We got a lot of things can start changing. You know, that workout week, that pre-draft, combine week is a dangerous one for buzz and momentum.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm glad you put out there the Texas thing. It needed to be said and heard. I think I was like, I'm 99% sure it was you that brought that up at some point, and I'm glad that you did again. We'll stay in the theme of like strong athletic stuff, and then we'll end with a couple other ones that are not. So most athletic.
I mean,
there's so many athletes in this class. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Just say Amen Thompson and we can move on.
Yeah, I'll go with a man.
I wrote Thompson's. I wrote Thompson's, and then I wrote like sleeper would be Cam Whitmore.
Whitmore is actually a good one. Yeah, there's such different athleticism because Whitmore just has the power and nastiness. Like it's just like torque almost, and Amen is just like bounce, like just springy. Like all of a sudden it's just a fighter jet taking off. So I think either of those, you're right up there.
This is why I love the NBA draft more than anything in the entire world in basketball, because you can improve just by having conversations with people. And I just came up with a reminds me of, and you literally said it, and I don't think you even realized you said it, and I'm literally adding it to my spreadsheet right now. He is literally a 6'8" Russell Westbrook. Like it doesn't like you mentioned, just like some of the nastiness and the core and just some of the like it just reminds me of would be, I'm not saying he's Russell Westbrook, people should understand that by now, but like just the positional explosiveness and just some of the stuff, like, and I'll pivot really fast. I have him for first step. I just threw out there as like who has the first step. His decision making on the first step is what I'm looking to see change. But when he takes that first step, he's either through me or around me, and there's no questions asked every time. And I'm like, it's eye opening every time I watch it.
I'm trying to think. Someone in No Ceilings today had a good like. Wait a sec, is blah blah blah? Oh, it was Metcalf. Shout out Metcalf, my co-host for No Ceilings. He was we were talking about Scoot, and he's like, he gets compared constantly to Westbrook, and he said, is Amen a better Westbrook compared like vibes? And I was like, actually, yeah, that's probably a better one. So it was just kind of like, well, that's a good point. So but that's why I love the reminds me of. Like, yeah, like Amen probably reminds me more of Westbrook if we're talking about just Westbrook. But yeah, that's a good one. I like that. I like it's funny how we always want to go back to Westbrook because it's just like, yeah, Westbrook's pretty awesome. Like everyone
crap on him so much, but yet,
but
he's comped for everybody as athletic. It's like, interesting. No, that's why I like like I said, you said it and you didn't realize you said it. It's like Cam Whitmore and like just some of the athleticism being different from what a Thompson twin could do at like I'm just going to put it out there, probably a 44-inch vertical. Right. That may be, I'm just throwing out a number without even really thinking, but I mean, whatever their vertical is going to be, my God, I mean, it's going to be high.
Yes.
So that is its own athletic ability in its own self. But yeah, Cam Whitmore is also a guy I need people to understand how athletic he is. All right. I've got, I think, 3 more. So let's do motor. Do you give a crap? motor?
No, I do.
No, not you. I said it to somebody.
I do. What
did you?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay. You got me because I said it to somebody at Portsmouth. I was like, do you give a crap? And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we were talking about motor and it got off sidetrack, and I'm like, sometimes motor just be like, do you give a crap?
Yeah.
And Trey Jemison was who I was talking about in that conversation, and he's a guy that gave a crap at Portsmouth. But do you give a crap? Motor is what I'm looking for here.
Motor, I would say Jarris or Jarris, Najee, or a Dembona. I'll throw a new name out there. Dembona gives a crap. His motor, I need it to turn off sometimes because I'm worried about his overall health because it is always just cooking. So, yeah, I'll say those three guys.
I like Bona. I feel bad we didn't bring him up for anything. I think he's very capable of being in the conversation for a lot of these defensive categories.
Yes.
Shout out to Bona. He's my birthday twin.
I love that. I need him to declare. He's one of my favorite guys. Like me, Metcalf can't stop talking about him all year. I'm
historically low. I say historically as in like compared like this year compared to everyone else, but I think it's because I do think another year would be really valuable.
Yes.
But it's another if he got drafted, I wouldn't be upset about it either. Anywhere. Like another guy I would probably, if I had an NBA job, it would be way higher.
If I had an NBA job, I'd be trying to promise him.
Ooh.
I'd be like, stay.
I was talking to someone today about a potential promise, and it was another guy, very athletic, big, and I'm not going to tell you live because I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just a guy that I think people are going to watch out for eventually.
I think Bona is going to get a promise. That's my prediction. Why? Because he just looks like a guy that would be getting a promise.
I love
some team will be like, don't go back. We'll work with you, and next year unleash you. Because he just has some special defense stuff. Don't quote me on that. I'm just throwing a dart, and I hope all of a sudden out of nowhere it's just like, oh, he's staying in. I'm like, like what happened? So you never know.
I love the promise thing because unless you have intel, which I know you and a lot of really good people in this space do, people technically never find out if the promise was ever kept, right? It's like people think Laravia had a promise, right? Which that never technically came out that I'm aware of. So
yeah, I can't
confirm nor deny that, right?
So I could probably, but I'm not going to.
So that's fair. And if he did, great, awesome. He got drafted where he did, and he's going to perform hopefully down the road.
Right.
I think the promise thing is so interesting. I think it was Was it Metcalf or somebody that tied the Miami Heat to some Michigan player, and I'm like, well, duh, like the Howard connection, haha, and it's like this is gonna happen. Yeah, it was somebody the last couple of years.
Caleb Houston.
Yeah, that's it. And he went 30 something to the Magic, so it's kind of like, did he get one? I don't know. Or maybe did they take him, or did they promise him and then not take him? And it's like there's a lot of those out there that you. Unless you have the answer, you can throw out any dart you want.
There's a lot of I'll hear someone's got a promise. And then the draft night, someone trades up. And you're like, oh, so I guess we'll never find out if it was true because someone else probably heard that and said, we got to get ahead of them. And you never know. So that's always the wrinkle too. That's fun is like, oh, okay. Well, then if someone wants him, they're going to have to go up ahead of this team. But yeah, the Miami one, it was always funny with Metcalf because he was just convinced. He was convinced it was it. And I was like,
it was a very
convincing case. We might have even been told it, but
yeah.
I can't remember. It was just funny because I was like, I think that might be one too. And then it didn't happen, I think, if I remember it right. Like he fell past them or something. But also everyone promises and then the board ends up like 4 guys are still on the board and the teams are like, we like this guy more. We can't draft that guy.
That's the beautiful part about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Miami Heat ended up taking Jovic, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right. Classic.
All that being said, we were talking about motor, which is the beautiful part about this. I have Deron Holmes, just like a really quick,
a good one.
He's so just never turns it off. Same thing with Bono. I wish he would channel the motor that is always running on defense and just channel it a little bit more into post finishing. But that's not a knock at all. It is, but. I'm trying to have my own conundrum of why I have him in the first round. I've had multiple conversations about why I have him there, and I can never keep making a convincing case. And I'm like, but everything's there, and the motor and the defense, and I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into him staying in the first round, and that's what I'm trying to keep him there. So
I'll just quick on him. He's becoming my most fascinating personal debate because I've moved him down the last couple of months, and then I'm doing a deep dive right now and just getting everyone's advanced numbers down because I'm trying to do some graphics for the pre-draft process. And I just was entering his and I was like, Oh man, I need to go back and watch him again because I was like, if he has a strong pre-draft process, someone's gonna love him. Like he's going to be convinced that someone could like watching the Kings against the Warriors. It's like Nick's always been saying, like, I would love Deron Holmes to go to the Kings. And I was like, yeah. And then last night I was watching that game and I was like, you could use Deron Holmes off the bench right now. Like he would probably help out with this. So and I'm, all respect to Kevon Looney, but yeah, Deron, he's fascinating. I'm so convinced like he's the guy to pay attention to. He's a strong one. He needs a strong one, or else I'm like, go back. Because the 24 class you hinted at it earlier, oh my gosh, it is a headache already. Like me and a bunch of the guys went to Portland and we were like sitting after the whole week and we were just like sitting down. And we're like, oh my goodness, like all those preseason projections right now, I would have complete opposite thoughts. So you never know. It's going to weigh, I think, and with a lot of these kids, I think some guys are going to be like, if I go back, like class next year, there's going to be, I think the upperclassmen or the returners have a lot to gain from next year's class. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be really fast on Duran so we can get out of here. You
Oh,
mentioned no. You mentioned we only got two more. So you mentioned
okay.
I'm so glad you didn't say it because I was ready. I texted somebody this verbatim. Like I had this light bulb with him. You mentioned the Kings Warriors series, and I think it's really important that you mentioned that. Yes, Sacramento could have used him very, 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 very well. Right? Could have just they needed a body that wasn't Sabonis as a big man. The reason that they needed him is because his I hate to say comp, but his comp or his reminds me of is Kevon Looney. Like like that would have been like two twins like playing with each other. Like I would have been like the Spider-Man meme with those two. Like I just see so many things there, and I know that Looney had a bunch of he was a 5-star, and there's a lot of other things there that were to position.
Right.
Dealt with some hip injuries at UCLA. I get it, but I just see so much in that. I think that would have been so valuable for either team. Just like as like a, hey, the Warriors had that guy, right? We have this guy and we have a Hulk, right? They have a Kevon Looney and the Kings didn't, right? If they had Deron Holmes, I think it would have been. I'm with you. I like that.
I'm not going to go too crazy because now I can talk forever. But those are my favorite games in the playoffs because I feel like it just shows everyone how important it is to be a rotation guy. Like everyone's always like, if I always will be like, he has a chance to be a strong rotation guy. And I think people think that's a negative. And I'm like, no. You have the potential to potentially win a game because of your NBA skill. And Looney's now become this relentless rebounder that is a problem to deal with. And he keeps possessions alive. And the Warriors have rewarded him with contracts and they have to play him. And he's a really big weapon for them. And it's like, just because you might not be a superstar doesn't mean you can't become a really, really important piece. And that's why I think a lot of fans get annoyed where it's like, oh, you have him going later. And I'm like, yeah, because he could still become a very, very key piece for this playoff team. You never know.
I think it's going to really surprise people when he actually does the exact same thing he did against Sacramento to the Lakers, and people are going to be like, what the heck? And I think people are going to open their eyes. So
yes. It's going to be fun to watch.
It will be. I will not have fun watching it as a Lakers fan. But smartest player in this draft, who is the highest IQ? And then we have the most fun, and we'll get out of here.
Why can't I just get? Jarris is obviously in that conversation. Scoot's probably up there. In terms of just a smart player, like I'll throw just a wild card name out because we've mentioned the same guys. I like Colby Jones a lot. That's my guy. He's just really smart with understanding where to get to his spots. Like, he's a guy that doesn't force the outside shot because he understands he could take 2 dribbles and go take an elbow jumper and it's a more efficient shot. He's also a good guy in transition. That's like your body's carrying your momentum this way. If I just go the other way really quick, I'm going to get an easy layup. Like he's just a really smart player on both sides of the ball. So I'll throw a little wild card there and say Colby Jones, although I mentioned the top dogs.
I think CD Sissoko is a name
City's a good one,
but also another one. I also had Anthony Black written down.
That's a good one too.
I think I would agree with. See, I already forgot who you said.
Colby Jones, but I think Anthony Black's there too. I'm just trying to mix it up so everyone gets a little bit more stuff. I also just a last second thing. I keep looking at Shooter. I should have mentioned Bryce Sensabaugh for Shooter. I'm not extremely high on him,
I
but
know. I
he
I
can shoot the crap
I
out of
did
the ball.
listen to that pod.
Oh yeah, I'm
I
sure there's
know.
plenty that did. I hope they did.
It was in person too. That's the best part about it. It
Oh
was y'all were
gosh.
sitting together and having that kind of debate. I was like, oh, this is gonna go south very quickly.
The funniest is we hit record, but we debated probably for 3 days straight about it. Like it was heated. We got off of it. We all felt better, and then we went right back into battle zone. And it's just one of those like
I
we're all
love it.
just passionate about it. And I try to always get on somebody else's because I'm always like, feed me. Why am I missing? Feed me it so I can go back and watch. And then I think we had that pod and the Airbnb we had a huge projector. So like right after we got done, we were just throwing on film. And literally the moment we stopped that, I just got on the couch and just threw on an Ohio State game. And I was just like watching and I was like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I was like, he's good, but I'm not putting him, some of the guys have him top 10. I was like, I can't,
Yeah.
can't go there. Can't go there, but I
Yeah.
like him.
I know a few people that have him there as well, and I'm just like, I'm somewhere in the 20s, like just happy with my thumb up. I'm like,
Yeah.
like,
I want him to go to a playoff team because I could be like, yeah, Sensabaugh was a steal here, but if you drop him top 10, I'll be like, oh boy. But then someone will throw out the idea like, what if we went to Orlando? And I'm like, okay, now I understand that. You could get me on that, but like, I want to stop the Sensabaugh discussion before we talk for another hour because
I could go. He is so tantalizing because we agree. That's the best part about it is we could sit here and say so many good things and still be like, yeah, we got him in the 20s. Like,
I've done it like 50 times already, and I keep doing it.
I'll spare you. It's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate.
He's also not the only example in this class. Like, we can talk about it later, but like, there's so many guys in this class that like I just have lower than everybody, and I'm just like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like, I'm willing to admit that defeat. And like, again, the opposite of the if I had an NBA job answer. If I had an NBA job, I would try to be right about every single player.
Yes,
but
exactly.
There are some guys where I'm just like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't care.
Right.
Like, I will not fight it. And there's a positive side to that. There are guys that you're really high on. It's the Bilal Coulibaly thing with Nathan. I think I had to bleep it. It was hilarious. I had to first time I've ever had to really explicit something. He was like, if I just believe it, then I just believe it.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's why I have Bilal at 12. And I'm like, you know what? I need to think more like that. And I went in and I played around with some stuff. And I'm like, if Jalen Slausson's a first-round pick in my eyes, then why can't he be? And I put him on there at 30, and I'm going to stick with it. So it can be positive also.
That's what I tell everyone. I say, you do the work. Believe in your own voice. Don't care about, everybody else's boards. Obviously, go check out No Ceilings boards and have some fun. But like, I don't need everyone that if you do your homework, it's like you don't have to follow our rankings. Be opposite. Be your biggest fan. Like, that's what I always get at. And I appreciate people that do the grind and then go, this guy should be a first rounder. I'm like, you damn right he should. Now tell me why. And it's like, perfect. Just because I don't agree doesn't mean it. And just because people haven't, Bryce Sensabaugh top 10 does not mean I need to put Bryce Sensabaugh top 10 if I've watched it. I have to, trust my gut.
All right, we've had a ton of fun. So I'm going to end with who would be the most fun to be a teammate with as the miscellaneous category.
I mean, everyone will probably think Victor, but we'll leave that out. I'll throw a little bit of a wild card that people aren't really gonna expect. I think Asar Thompson. I've watched him play a lot, and he just does a lot of little stuff where it's like if you were playing pickup and you had this guy on your team, it would just be awesome because you'd be like, I'm wide open for a leak out. Asar would hit you every time. The extra pass, I'm wide open for a jumper. He will make it right every time. You're holding the ball and nobody's open. Asar will cut. He'll find a lane for you. It's just one of those guys where I think he understands how to play as a connecting piece. And I think he doesn't need a ton of shots offensively, but he'll have the ball moving. I still like his defense and stuff. So I think for teammate, the most fun, I'm just talking about like on the court stuff. I've heard Asar and Nomen are great kids. I know they're hard workers. So I guess we'll put that into it, but I'm just saying watching on the court, he looks like a guy that's just like, oh, guy's open. I don't care who it is. He's wide open. Give him the ball. And that's a guy I'd put up there. Obviously I've said some names I would pick like Jarris and stuff, but I'm saying right now, Asar.
I went with a guy that literally makes zero sense for how you described it, because I'm glad that I knew that you would probably go down the play with route. I said, you know what? If we're going to end it with this, it would be so much fun to play with Mike Miles, to play with a guy that plays that freaking hard all the time.
I love you, Trevor. Absolutely love you.
He plays so hard, and I watched TCU going, I mean, they seemed like they were just a bunch of moping, depressed dudes when he was out for that, 6-game stretch or whatever it was. And when he came back, their whole life changed. I mean, it was just like this from one flip to another. And I know how you feel about him. I'm glad you said that. But, like,
love him.
I know that. And I knew that when I picked it. But I'm like, I don't know. I just kept going, who's the most fun? Like, I don't know, a guy that, like, would run through a freaking wall for me? I think it'd be really fun. Like, I mean, Absolutely. I'll run through a wall for him back. Like, that. If I'm his teammate, like, if he's going to step up for me like that, I'll step up for him like that. And I think that's a translatable, fun thing that needs to be addressed sometimes.
If I was a team, I would go to war any day with Mike Miles. Like, I think someone's going to look like a genius if they're like, okay, our backup point guard is going to be Mike Miles. I'm like, yeah, that's a dang good backup point guard. Potential 6-man. He's just a dog. I absolutely love him. Everything he brings to the tour. And people will be like, oh, he's a little undersized. I'm like, no, let's just come on. Like, it's not like he's 5'10". I think he's going to be a solid 6'2" and dish out punishment. And he plays tough. I think he's going to be a player at the next level for a long time. I'm shocked he's not getting more love on some other mainstream boards. I just a little shocked.
Yeah, there are multiple places that have him way lower than they should. Like, I just am like, if I'm okay with him being in to be clear, I think I have him in the 40s, which seems so low. But, like, there are places that have him almost unranked. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, he just plays too hard. I have 45.
I have him at 33. There's some places that had him unranked for, like, the last 3 months that all of a sudden he just popped up and was, like, 44th again or 45th. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. What changed? And it's just like, it's just the time of the year. Everyone starts going like, okay, yeah, I was overthinking. Let me go back. And I think Mike Miles is going to – he's also a guy that he might scrimmage at the combine and just – have an Andrew Nimhart of last year, and everyone's like, whoa, Mike Miles. And it's like, yeah, he's a dog.
I love the Andrew Nimhart, a guy who was very, very successful this year, especially early in the year. So, all right, I hate to do it, but I know this stopwatch I'm looking at is not correct, but I think the whole point of these, it's fun. People understand by now, draft chat, like, these are not supposed to be short, right? We're supposed to have conversation. It's supposed to be something that we like are talking about motor, and all of a sudden we don't talk about Deron Holmes for 45 minutes. Like, it's supposed to happen, right? Those are things that make us better as people, as evaluators. I gave you and Steven both credit in that tweet. I thank you both a lot for making me think more, right? Like, not just YouTube. There's hundreds of people I talk to every day that just, without their input and thought and having these conversations, like, we wouldn't be better as people and as evaluators, where we're like, wow, I really overthought Keegan Murray for, like, the longest time. That's just the example I give for you guys. But, like, just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with me. Plug away. It's going to be everything's going to be on the screen on YouTube. Everything will be below. I know you don't like plugs, but just do it.
It's fine. Thanks for having me on, Trevor. For anyone that wants to talk hoops, you could find me at my Twitter account, which will be on the screen, but Tyler_Rucker. Find all my written work at NoCeilingsNBA.com or on all social media platforms at NoCeilingsNBA. If you're looking for highlights, you want to check out some prospects, we have finals breakdowns on our YouTube, which is basically just offense, playmaking, defensive highlights for the whole season. So I'm actually going to be adding some more on there. So thank you as always, Trevor, for having me on. This is a blast. And anyone who wants to talk hoops, just send me a message. We can always talk draft.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much to Tyler Rucker for coming on today and having a great conversation about the NBA draft. If you want to support everything that Tyler does, that would be amazing. Everything is linked in the description below, as well as the Twitter was on the screen in the previous section here. Don't forget, the Two Pointers podcast is being sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek gets you $20 off your first purchase in the SeatGeek app or in the SeatGeek website. Link in the top of the description. Don't forget, you can see your seat. Baseball games going on this summer. A lot of cheap stuff there throughout the U.S. Concerts, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. Got a lot of really great places that you can save $20 off your first purchase. Code 2Pointers. Link in the top of the description. Don't forget to follow Two Pointers on all social media platforms at Two Pointers or at the Two Pointers Podcast. All of my written work for House Enterprise is linked in the description below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you soon.